The Fantasmagorium show is proud to present Money, Murder, and Minnesota, a retrospective and review of all things Fargo. And forgive me if the blueness of the final stanza, but here it is. Behold the amazing pelican, whose beak can hold more than his belly can. He can hold in his beak enough for a week. I'll be damned if I know how the hell he can. Geronimo. The award-winning Coen Brothers executive produced and Noe Hawley run FX series of Fargo is what we are here for. So let's go. Kat is here. I am Scotty R37, and Steve choked on a macaroon. How are you doing, Kat?
All right.
How are you feeling about the show? We are now in the we have 2 episodes left after we review these 3. By the way, spoilers for episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Fargo season 4.
Yeah, it's kind of more of the plot thickens going down the home stretch, but it's not. They do take advantage of the whole "this is a true story" motif as an excuse to do things which are very narratively unsound or uncough, if you will, and it's and so it's like, okay, I'm kind of surprised, but yeah.
I'm really enjoying it. I feel that these. Remember how you were saying last week that usually it's around episode 6 that shit gets real. I said swear within the first 2 minutes. We're demonetized. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But like this is the one where like these episodes 7 and 8 I think are back to back favorite of the season. So much happens, and it has paid off the tension of the previous 6 episodes, in my opinion. We finally get a meeting. We get a meeting between Lowe. Is that his name? Lowe? Chris Rock.
Loy.
I forgot a sometimes vowel. And what's his name? Porthos?
What?
You know, the other fada.
Oh, Josto?
Josto. Sorry. I thought his name was Porthos for a moment there. And so we get Loy and Josto, and they finally meet. There is a final meeting. Like, that is catharsis for what we've seen so far. There's a lot of stuff going on in this trilogy of episodes that we're going to be discussing today. Not to take away from the fact that episode 9, not to be confused with the Rise of Skywalker, but episode 9 is filmed primarily in black and white. The cinematography is absolutely scrumptious and crisp. And there are stylistic things here that are making up for a lot of the boredom that I think you and I have shared previously in this series.
In a way, yeah. So, like last time, I'll just sum up the events, but out of, whatever's most convenient instead of bouncing back and forth.
But first things first, got to say hello to the Phantom Organist. Still waiting for pancakes? Oh, dude, they're so easy to make. Get a pan, get a skillet. And Herc 130 is here. Yeah. Hey, Flyboy. Kat, you were saying, oh, an Edge of Time. Hail, Edge of Time.
Hail. So, the episode begins with Aretta poisoning Dr. Harvard with macaroons. And he thinks he's dead. Turns out he's not. And she's later told this by a nurse. And so she looks around the hospital because she needs to find out where he is. And she's like, oh, he got transferred to another hospital that deals with poisons. And she's like, poisons? She's like, yeah, the detectives think it's the same people who tried to gun him down in the drive-by. And not safe for him around here. And she's like really worried. So Aretta goes home and starts packing up as quickly as possible. And because she had pocketed the letter that Dr. Harvard had received, the one she wanted earlier that was tipping him off to her being a psycho, she looks at the letter and She reads it, and as
Oh,
she
wait,
goes to,
hang on 2 seconds. You're jumping all over the place because ultimately, first things first, do you think Aretta murdered him for the letter to cover up her crimes?
but both, because she can't. She wants to keep doing what she's doing, and she can't now that he's been alerted.
Okay.
So she goes into the closet with all of her mementos, and she's haphazardly just grabbing all of the stuff. And that's when she finally finds Ethelrita's notebook, and she compares the handwriting from the letter and realizes that it's her. And I don't know. That's a good question. French almond flour macaroons or coconut? They didn't go that far to answer that question.
The answer is arsenic, Irene Jacobson. Or Jobson.
Strychnine.
Oh,
No,
it was strychnine. You're right. Yeah,
yeah,
no better
strychnine.
way to poison a macaroon.
So she compares the handwriting and she realizes it's Ethelrita's, and she looks out the window and sees Ethel waiting for the school bus. And I should mention that she had continued, up to that point, she had been continuing her affair with Josto, who tells her sheepishly once that he's in love with her and tries to tell her about things that the Mr. Milligan, the head of the Milligan family, did to him when he was traded for the 3 years. And she's like, I don't want to hear any of this. Blah, blah, I don't want. And he's like, but I love you. It's just like, and then she gets really unnerved by that and upset and throws him out and gets really angry. For a second there, I thought he was going to discover the closet or something, but he doesn't.
They did do like a shot of him coming down the hall in the same way that Ethelrita had found it. So I was curious. Yes.
Yeah.
Good
So that's
observation.
going on. And that's all we see from Aretta in these 3 episodes. And
Yes.
so I was like, okay. And I still don't buy that somebody as smart as Ethelrita still hasn't realized that she left her notebook inside the closet. I thought that, or hasn't even wondered where it is.
Well, okay, so because we do see that sort of montage of Mayflower, I was going to say Mayweather, Mayflower making the poisonous macaroons, and she was very excited about it. And so I can understand how she went top shelf without seeing what was going on at the bottom shelves. She wasn't in the mood for reminiscing about her belongings. She was going straight to the medicines. So I let it fly, but yes.
No, I mean that the fact that Ethel hasn't thought about the fact that she's been missing her notebook for quite a while now.
That's true.
That's the
Yeah,
thing.
oh no, that's true.
That's been going on. It's like this has been going on for a while. And for that matter, Ethelrita continues to be a non-plus in this show. She sees the the cannons show up as they're starting to use their funeral home as a front. And oh, hello, Matt G. And Lloyd Cannon's eldest son, I forgot his name, but he comes upstairs to see her, asks her what kind of jazz music she likes, and she's like, oh, Louis Armstrong. He's like, well, everybody says that. You know Charlie Parker. He doesn't have structure. It's really great. She's like, well, I like structure. And then her mom comes upstairs and says, oh, your mom's calling for you. And she tells Ethelrita, these people, they're not our friends. They're our captors. So you need to stay clear more than I did. And that's, again, the last we see of Ethelrita throughout these 3 episodes. So, color me
Yes, but also we do sort of transition over to, once we get to the rabbi, we do get a little bit more of people being possessions kind of thing. And I think that that's something that the entire season has been trying to talk about, is that there may be different groups in America that could claim ownership upon you, but ultimately it's America that owns you. Like it's a weird, like things are starting to coalesce. They're not very, very clear. They're not heavy-handed, but they are, like, they're pointed, I think. There's an obvious flavor to this season, and I'm not averse to it. It's interesting, but and also the desperation of each of the players throughout the series is becoming, it's interesting to watch everyone deal with their own desperation because everyone is Jerry Lundegaard.
Yeah, but she's still a non-plus. She was teased as if she was going to be one of the main protagonists and players in the show, and she's just nobody, like an afterthought at this point.
Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. So then, meanwhile, we go back to Josto and Loy finally meet. Josto
Yeah.
takes Vlate with him. I think that's his name. And Vlate thinks they're there to make an offer, saying if you return Gaetano to us, then we're prepared to give you all these other businesses, and you can have it. And Josto interjects, and he's like, no. How about you kill Gaetano, and I'll give you all that stuff. And Valta is kind of surprised, like, what? And Loy's listening to him, and he's like, what's this about? And he's like, well, it's a death for a death. He's like, what are you talking about? And he tells him that, oh, well, when Calamita found out about the trade, that we were going to trade for you and all the businesses, he went crazy and he killed your boy. And Loy is like legit like shocked by this, and he'll actually be thinking about it through the rest of the episodes, kind of flashing back on all the moments that his boy had tried to get him to, hey Dad, when am I coming home type thing, and how he kept brushing it off. And you could tell
interesting
this is really,
montages of guilt.
Right, and he's finally bothered by it, and you can see that he's really shaken that he's been told this. And so Josto's like, I know you want to kill him, and Gaetano's been causing all the trouble. He started this whole thing, so you can have Calamita, you can go find him. I don't know where he is, but you can take Gaetano, like a death for a death. And Loy is thinking about it, and he just says to his guys to let Josto and Valte go, even though they have a bunch of guys outside. And Josto told them, if we're not back in 30 minutes, come in shooting or whatever. And is Opal and the other guys are like, boss, you can't let him go after this. We can't let. And he lets him go anyway. He then has another surprise where he goes into the back to find Gaetano, and he gets upset at I can't remember his name, the guy who was in charge of watching his other son when they got arrested at the nightclub, when he didn't get mad at him last week, and now he's actually, upset about it. He's like, what'd you think? I wasn't going to get up, in your face about it. And gets out his belt and just starts whipping him over and over again, just really wailing on him to the point that his own guys keep trying to pull him off of him, and he just keeps going back for more. And so he's like, wow.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of them beating the shit out of the copy machine from Office Space.
It didn't quite remind me of that because we didn't have any of the Michael Bolton music with the slow-mo.
There was no Michael Bolton music in Office Space.
Isn't that the running joke of that movie for that one character?
Michael Bolton was in the scene, but no, I thought it was... I
can't remember what it was. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Oh, it's such a good movie. We should review it. Anyway, so... Loy Cannon is losing control, and also he's been lied to. Let's not forget that his boy has not yet been murdered.
Right, and Josto's also lied by saying he had nothing to do with it. It was all Gaetano and Calamita, when, of course, we know Josto is the one who pretty much gave that order, because he's the one who inadvertently inspired Milligan to go do something about it, which he didn't mean to do. When he's like, no, the boy, that stuff's done. But so Josto's like making a power play. And I like that Josto does this, because he's been kind of, ditzy, or, not all that, like, he's just been kind of a dimwit. Like I joked that they're trying to make him like the comical, a spoof on Michael Corleone. Like he thinks of himself as that, but he's really not. And this was actually the first time he tries something smart. It's like, great, let's get rid of Gaetano. No, we don't have to trade for it. It's great. We'll be fine.
Well, is it smart or is it conniving? Like even Gaetano
it is conniving, but it could be both. Because again, he knows that New York wants Gaetano, and if Gaetano's gone, there's nothing New York can do about it. So that's what he wants to try and do. But instead, Loy has another idea. Yes. He decides to let Gaetano go, which surprises him. And the boss, and he tells him when he's letting him go that, oh, your brother came here and offered up a bunch of his territories in exchange for me killing you. And Gaetano's surprised that he's telling him this and going to let him go anyway. But he decides he's not going to argue with it. He just leaves. And so when Josto gets back, he gets back in the car and they're driving away, and he's kind of confident and he's smoking a cigarette in the back, like he's got it all figured out. But then sometime later, when he goes back to the bar and he sees all the guys celebrating, he's like, what's this? And it's Gaetano. And he's like, oh shit, because they're all kind of taking his side. And Gaetano just grabs him and flips him over and body slams him on the card table, knocking him and then walks up and just punches him unconscious. And I was like, man, that was an interesting flipping of the tables, because it seemed like they were done with Josto last week, and now Josto was done with Gaetano last week, and now it's the other way around.
And the thing is that when Josto wakes up, I'm expecting, okay, so this is going to be slow, torturous murder. And they actually talk it out like brothers, which is something that I haven't felt in the series so far. And I know Gaetano is insane. And so I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it just seems like Gaetano is like, good brother. He's like Dracula. Brother, I will be the muscle and you will be the python, the chameleon.
Well, here's the thing. I wonder if he's
Fucking
still
weird.
playing him up to a point, though, because he says that the reason he didn't kill his brother is not so much because of that. It's because he's smart enough to know what Loy's game is. It's like, no, he let me go because he wants me to kill you. If I do
Right.
this, he gets what he wants. So I wonder if he's just pretending to be all buddy buddy. You could be the brains, I'll be the brawn type of thing. Because he doesn't want to give Loy the satisfaction. Like he wants to see this out, and maybe he secretly is like, you know what, I'll save you for later, kind of thing. Because you see Volante or whatever sitting at the back of the bar, and he's the only one who's not celebrating or being enthusiastic about this new partnership. He's sitting there and he's like, "What the hell is going?" Like he's suspicious. He's smart. He doesn't really trust this whole thing.
Well, he's been out of the loop, and it's one of the saving graces between the Cannons and the Fadas in the first place is that he was copacetic with Dr. Senator, and he thinks that everything has gone south since Dr. Senator has gone south.
Yeah. So I'm still wondering about that. I mean, granted, something else happens which might change that around, but meanwhile, Loy is told by Opal and the guys are like, "It didn't work, boss. They're buddies now. They're all buddy buddy." And he's like, "Well, then what do we do?" And Loy says, "Mort Kellerman, Fargo," because he previously sold Mort a bunch of guns on the black market at cost for a favor.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, "Okay." And so they go to. And meanwhile, back at Loy's house, while this was all
back
going
at
on,
the ranch.
yes, Calamita shows up at the house, and he notes that there was no guards here on the front porch. How many children are in the house? And she's like, how about and it's Loy's wife who answered the door, and she's like, how about I answer your question with a question? He's like, okay. She's like, have you ever been to the zoo? And he's like, yeah. And she says, well, the lion that's in there with her cubs, the cage isn't for her. And he gets the message, and then she pulls out a sawed-off pump-action shotgun at him, which he's kind of a little, he's not that taken aback by it, but he's kind of like, oh, he kind of smiles like, okay, she's more than he thought it was gonna be, because he went there to get, of course, Satchel, or not Satchel. He went there to get Zero, Josto's son. So
Irene Jobson in the chat says, "Seems like I need to watch this show." Irene, I said spoilers.
Yeah, so he backs off, and Josto sends him to go find Rabbi Milligan and the kid, because they found Antoon dead, because Antoon was the guy who was supposed to kill him. He's like, you go run him down and kill him. He's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So it seems like Calamita and Josto are kind of back on terms, where it seems like they were, because Josto was upset at him last week. He was like, you need to learn what loyalty means, and sent him off with Volante or whatever. But now they seem to be kind of a little more understanding. So Calamita goes off to deal with this. Meanwhile, Josto, I'll just finish the part about Josto and Gaetano for the sake of simplicity. So Josto and Gaetano go to their mother's house, and I can't remember if they said where this was, if it's also in Kansas City, but I would assume so. So they're on the property, and they're all buddy buddy. They get along, and then Josto reveals to Gaetano that I didn't actually kill the son. I tried to, but Rabbi absconded with him. And Gaetano's like, you tell him that you kill his son and you don't. He's like, you're the python. He's like, yeah, I'm the bull, you're the snake, and he loves that.
Yeah.
And then
Fargo shows up.
Well, the mother comes out first and tells them, oh, boys, you're going to get cold. Oh, we're men, Mom. We don't get colds. Well, come on in. And then they do a really neat editorial choice. When Fargo shows up, it's like you see him kind of in the background, and then it just cuts to black for an extended period. Then it flashes back up as they're taking their guns and firing and kill 4 guards. Then it cuts to black again, so on and so forth. And Gaetano whips out 2 pistols and starts shooting at him like crazy. And I was surprised that when the guys run away, they back off. I thought they were just going to lay low for a second and come back around because they got machine guns. But they lose a couple guys and they flee. And he's like, Gaetano looks at Josto, "You're hurt?" "No." It's like, "Oh, okay, we're fine." But then they hear screaming coming from inside the house, and they run inside and find that some of the stray bullets flew in and killed their mother. And Josto is surprisingly more calm about it than Gaetano. Gaetano is just like getting as red as a tomato. At first, it seems like he's about to cry. Then he gets as red as a tomato. He is just livid.
Are you allowed to say that Italians get red as tomatoes?
That didn't even cross my mind as I was saying it, to be honest.
I'm just saying, you're a little bit... anyway, in the chat, Irene Jacobson. Why do I keep saying Jacobson? Irene Jobson says, "Oh, I don't mind spoilers. Well, LOL. I came here to see my girl Cat."
Hey, Irene.
You want to read this from Irene?
So now it seems like the two brothers, if there was any animosity...
No. Come on, what did Irene say? Spoilers actually help alleviate anxiety for me.
So it seems if there was any animosity between him, if Gaetano still had some animosity towards his brother, he might be putting that on the back burner now until they deal with this problem.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it seems like they're doing. Is just Gaetano is waiting until Josto isn't useful anymore. Once this war is over, Gaetano is going to get rid of Josto.
Yes. So meanwhile, Loy's wife, Buell, she goes to the funeral home to see Ethelrita's mom, and they sit down. And Ethelrita's mom's about to pour her coffee. She's like, "Look, I know what's going to happen. You're gonna give me coffee. We're gonna swap stories, and you're asking me if I can help you. Blah blah blah." And she's like, "Oh, that's not gonna happen." But then that's exactly what happens. She sits down and starts talking about how they can help, and Ethelrita's mom says, "Look, I'm not about to let my stubbornness or pride get in the way of asking for help." And so then Loy's mother alludes to the notion that her son is dead because she thinks that he's been killed, and asks if she wants her to host the funeral. And Ethelrita's mom says it would be my honor to do that. And that's when Buell goes to get her, eldest son, who is loading contraband and stuff in the house, talking to Ethelrita upstairs, and they leave.
Well, they own the place.
Yeah. So then, meanwhile, we go back to Defi. And once again, we keep establishing, as we have for several episodes now, that he's been paying attention to what's been going on and how Otis is kind of, on the take, so to speak. And you can see that the various crime families are doing this and that. And Otis.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned Otis. We were going to get to Otis eventually. I've posted this a couple of times, but I found Bill Haley and his Comets singing the song 10 Little Indians. The song was released in 1954, and the events of this show are supposed to be in 1950. Now, it is based on a traditional limerick to encourage counting, but I was very surprised because the actor who plays Otis looks a lot like Bill Haley from Bill Haley and his Comets. Anyway, you were saying.
So Defi wants to find out where Swanee and Zelmare are. They have been put on a train, the 10 o'clock train to Philadelphia by Loy Cannon. They're like, "We don't know anybody in Philadelphia." He's like, "I don't care. You go there, you don't come back." Because he's like, "You did your favor for me. It's done. Just go." But then Defi shows up, and he's like, "Well, where?" And he wants to talk. And at first, Opal's trying to dissuade him. No, you belong in this town, boy. You're going to be in trouble. And he shows that he's got a gun, and he shows him his badge. So he takes him inside.
Hey, Eugene Bird.
Yeah, sometimes it is a modern show. It's an anthology series, so it jumps around in terms of some seasons are set in the modern day, others are set in the past.
We're in 1950 right now. Shut up.
Yeah, so Defi wants to know from Loy. It's like, where? I know, like, I've been paying attention. Where are these ladies? I know you know where they are. And he doesn't want to tell them, and citing, family and codes and morality and things like that. And Defi kind of throws him down on it, and he says, "You know how I know that you're full of shit, basically, with your codes and your hypocrisies? Because you're a man who..." It's like, "No, how do you know?" It's like, "Because you're a man who traded your son for power and control and don't give a shit about it." And Loy is like, really
good.
It was great. And Loy is shaking because he has no idea why Defi would know that. And he's like, "The idea that's why you're going to tell me." He's like, "You trade your son away for power, but you won't trade away 2 strangers that mean jack shit in exchange for not having the U.S. Marshals and federal government breathing down your neck? Really? And so Loy caves. He tells them where they're going to be, and he's like, thanks. An excellent scene, by the way. That was so good.
Worth it so far, just to
Yeah.
get there, just to let a little pressure off, like catharsis. Seeing Timothy Olyphantastic and Chris Rock play off of one another, it was absolutely glorious. And as I've mentioned before in private, and I'll do so again publicly, this is a performance season.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking back to, like you're saying, that is this the backstory as to something I'm going to learn about in season 2, which I haven't seen yet. Yeah, but if I'm watching, like, I feel like I'm kind of watching the prequel before I saw the original, and it's kind of weird. I'm watching it out of order. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'll come back to that. So,
anyway, before we go again,
yeah.
LDG Free the Net. Hello.
Oh, hello,
Good
LDG.
to see you.
Nice to see you.
And Irene says, 10 little Indians is like the ducks who went out one day over the hill and far away, or the ducks in my apartment retention pond, or after retention, anyway, in Florida that had a gator. One by one, the chicks disappeared. Oh, really?
Apartment
I
retention
didn't.
pond.
But no, I didn't get the understanding that 10 little Indians was like.
It's a play on, and then there were none.
Really?
Because, and then there were none. The story, there's like these 10 little Indian statues or carvings or whatever on the hearth above the fireplace. And one of the characters makes a note about it, like, oh, we're all in here, and he sings some rhyme or something about 10 little Indians and how eventually there will be none. And that's kind of what happens, because they all start getting picked off one by one.
Fun. Let's continue on with the episode.
So Defi goes back to the police station, and Otis is feeling really nervous now because Loy had detained him briefly and wanted to know, like, what's going on, my boy? Like, what's going on? And Otis doesn't know shit. So he finally he can't take the stress of all of this anymore. It's sending his OCD through the roof. So he comes clean to Defi, and he's like, you know what? I want to be a cop. I don't want to be on the take, anything like this. And he says, ever since you've been making fun of me and calling me twitchy and all that shit, but ever since I was a little kid, they said it was hypertension or hypersensitive or whatever. And nobody ever gave a shit or whatever. And he's like, but if I'm so hypersensitive and whatever and caring about this stuff, I wouldn't be able to go to war, but I did. And, you know, and the things that he did. And when he got back, and he says, it's not that I wanted to be corrupt. I wanted to be a cop because I finally had control of something. And then, you know, these other guys show up. And you take a little bit of money, which helps. And you lose a little bit of power, but you're still able to be even keel, and you're still able to be all right. And Defi hears him out as he's explaining this. Another great scene. And he buys it. And he's like, you want to be back on the side of Johnny Law and all that? Then come on, let's go. We got the lead. So he goes with him, and they go to the train station, and they park outside, and they're waiting for the call. And he's like, okay, let's roll. So Defi gets out of the car, and all the cops start following him, but Otis stays back inside, and he's like even slapping himself. He's putting his gloves back on, but left and right. He's messing with the lock. He's in total overdrive right now. And Defi doesn't seem to care that he's not coming on his heels immediately. Meanwhile, inside the train station, we see Zelmare and Swanee sitting down, waiting for their train. And Zelmare wants to go get some Swanee wants to get candy. And Zelmare's like, girl, that sweet tooth is going to kill you, get us killed one day. You shouldn't be doing that. It's like, oh, come on, I'll get you something too. She's like, okay, get me like a lollipop or whatever. So she goes over to this rather large kiosk for selling candy.
It's like a newsstand. It's like a candy stand. Yeah, but it's in a train station. It's in a central station in Kansas City.
Yeah, so she goes up there. She's like, give me 5 of these and some of these, blah, blah. He's like, and he greeted her as sir because of what she's wearing with her cowboy hat, her big coat or whatever.
She's a lesbian.
Yeah, so he's getting
How
her the
dare a person in the 1950s misgender her?
Either he did it deliberately because he was being a jerk, or because he didn't bother to look at her face and notice.
She looked like an Amish man.
Right, so she takes the candy and goes back to. She takes the candy and they go back to sit down, and they're eating and they're waiting for it. And Defi's walking in on the second floor, and he's surveying everything from the marble wall up there, and then eventually he and Zelmare lock eyes, and Zelmare just spits her sucker out. And
it was so good. It was so good. It was good.
It's so tense.
And it proved, like, Zelmare being like, we're outlaws. You caught us. Good. We're going to gun our way out of it. And that's immediately what she goes to.
Well, what happens first is Swanee sees, again, the corpse, the ghostly corpse or whatever from the funeral home, looking at her.
Oh, yeah. True story.
Yeah, and she's like,
I forgot about the ghost. There's ghosts.
Yeah, the ghost. She keeps seeing the ghost, and she's like, as an omen, and then she sees the cops coming. So she and Zelmare just get their guns out, and they just fire right through the bystanders to hit the cops. And then this big shootout happens, and it's pretty crazy. Meanwhile, Otis is still outside messing with his own.
It's not that crazy. Like, if you haven't seen the show, don't expect like a huge action sequence. It is the tease of an action sequence, and I would say that this is probably the best sort of transition in the same way. Like, we were bitching about it, or I was, last week, about that the difference between hearing the carnage while seeing the camera pan up.
Well, we saw that with the raid on the mom's house with Josto and Gaetano, because it kept cutting to black when Mort's guys were.
For sure. But this is like, there's an eruption of violence, but there is no follow through. Like, it just shows you the beginnings of the shootout, and then it's over. Like not that the shootout is over. You just don't get to see anymore. It's actually very powerful, in my opinion.
I meant it's crazy because they're just shooting at the bystanders, Zelmare and Swanee. And that's where I don't give a shit about either of those two anymore. Fuck them both. Send them to hell. One-way ticket to hell. I don't care. So the shootout gets going.
Anyway, I do want to. We got a $9.99 super sticker.
Thank you.
It looks like Poochie from The Simpsons. Itchy and Scratchy.
On my end, it just says super sticker. I can't see it.
No, I'm looking at it on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
But hey.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not Poochie.
So Otis finally works it up, and he's like, okay, let's go. So he gets out of the car. He runs in, and there's no more guns or anything like that.
Nothing.
Yeah, that money goes to Scotty to buy a box of turkey. So he goes inside, and he sees all these dead cops and a lot of dead civilians. And then he hears a couple more gunshots, and he hears Deffy telling him to give up. And he runs. Otis kind of goes upstairs, and he finds Deffy holding both Swanee and Zelmare at gunpoint. And he says to Otis, hearing him coming, "They've run out of bullets." And he hands Otis.
Seemed convenient.
It does, especially since the two are just kind of standing there with him with his pistol.
But earlier, because Otis is on the take, he already said to Deffy, it's like, I have to, like, kill them. Like, I have to kill them. And
that's right. Deffy, he says, tell me on the phone who called. He says it was Loy wanting me to make sure they're either caught or killed, that they are not coming back, because he fears retaliation.
So Otis does ultimately succumb to the mob.
He does. He walks in there, and then he just shoots Deffy dead, because Deffy offered him the cuffs, and he wouldn't take the cuffs. Instead, he pulled out the gun. He shoots Deffy dead, and then he shoots Swanee dead, at which point Zelmare, did she shoot him, or did she, how did he not shoot her?
He just got away. Well, you know what? I don't know, because there is a puddle of blood. There is a puddle of blood.
Yeah, so for some reason he falls. She escapes screaming, devastated that Swanee is dead.
Yes.
And I admit I was really disappointed by this turn, because once again, we've taken a good character like Deffy, and we've been teasing all season long practically that he's aware of what these crime families are doing, and he's been paying attention and watching, waiting to make his move. It's like, this isn't just about getting the women anymore. He's invested now in what's going on around here, and nothing came of it. He's just done. And it's like, again, like Dr. Senator, one of my favorite characters. This guy was one of my favorite characters, because I was expecting something exciting to happen with him, and instead they go with the whole based on a true story stuff to make it feel like,
shut up. Stop being a pussy about that.
But it's basically what happened. I mean, there's no payoff to that.
No, but there is payoff to this.
How is there a payoff to Deffy's whole character?
In season 2.
How?
I don't know. I haven't seen season 2.
Yeah, fuck you. No. So
No, but what I'm saying is that like I enjoy the surprise of a character that I enjoy dying. Like I enjoy when there are stakes in my
right,
fiction.
but I feel they
I
already did that with
like it.
Dr. Senator. And
Well,
quite
you know
recently.
what? It is a gang war. Maybe it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath.
Well, I know that,
I
but it's like this
enjoy, and
character
we've been talking about the involvement of
I know, but
law
what I'm saying
enforcement,
is
and we got
objective.
cop versus cop in this gang
Right, but
war.
I'm saying is almost
Bring
like
it on.
I'm just saying objectively, the screenwriters just used the Deafy character to add more tension by having him watching everything, so you think he's going to do something and then he doesn't. So it's like, what was the point in that character? He barely gets to do anything. He has a lot of screen time, but it's mostly him watching and talking. He doesn't really get to do anything.
Well, except inform the audience that Otis is a son of a bitch. No matter how much he cries, he killed a good man. He might have been an asshole, but Deafy was a good man.
Yeah, I didn't even think he was that much of an asshole, to be honest.
So it does inform us, even if you're sympathetic to Otis, fuck Otis.
Yeah, I wasn't that sympathetic to Otis.
I was sort
In
of
the beginning of the
coming
season,
around. See my hand flailing? I've got my OCDs.
in the beginning of the season, he was a bit of an ass himself, and clearly, he clearly wasn't a guy who seemed intimidated by being on the take. He loved helping out the Italians. It's only now that he's being put under pressure by the cannons that he's getting all nervous because he doesn't like being, owned by the cannons as opposed to being with the Fadas. And so, and let's be honest, that's racism is the reason why he doesn't like being under Cannon's thumb as opposed to being under the Fada's thumb. That's what, like, the part of the themes of this whole season was that's about. And so, yeah, I didn't really feel much sympathy for Otis. And that he's trying to play the OCD card. Well, I'm hyper. It's like bullshit. That you didn't have a problem. You loved working for the Fadas. You're just upset now because Cannon, a black man, has leverage over you. That's what this really is. And now he could have shot both Swanee and Zelmare if he wanted to. Or he could have pretended to fuck up pretend to trip and fall into Deafy so he drops his gun. Do something to create a scenario where the girls would try and run and he could just gun them both down. So that way,
Are you rewriting the episode? What are you saying?
No, but I'm saying I'm saying that I'm not sympathetic to him because
No, neither am I.
He could have still fulfilled his obligation to the cannons, or even not even bothered doing that because you think about it. If he doesn't want to be under Loy's thumb anymore, then he should conspire to let the girls go and maybe tell them, oh, by the way, Loy Cannon wanted me to kill you, but instead I killed Deafy. You're welcome. But no, instead he just does like half the job. It's like he gets rid of Deafy, proving that he doesn't want to be a good cop. He gets rid of Swanee, which is only half of the problem, and just makes Zelmare hate him. So he's kind of in more of a bind than he was in before, because Cannon's still going to be upset with him. Now Zelmare is going to be upset with him. And
what
there's
if
going
she
to be more
goes
marshals
back?
coming.
Yeah, and she's going to go back to the home, the funeral parlor.
Right.
And then there's going to be a clash of titans.
Yes. And so that is all the events of the 7th and 8th episodes.
Yeah.
And I agree that those are some of the best episodes because it's finally starting to get towards somewhat of a payoff. But I admit I still don't know who I should really be rooting for here, except maybe the two kids, Zero and Satchel, to get free of this ridiculous arrangement that they're stuck in.
See, and that's an interesting question, which is not, and I'm with you, like, who am I supposed to be rooting for? Like, I'm picking my own from, like, I think I'm on the Cannon side simply because I like Chris Rock.
Mm.
And I liked Dr. Senator. I don't think he should have died. Fuck Gaetano. Josto is, he's kind of like the Wesley
He tried to
Fletcher.
kill a child. Fuck him.
Well, true story. Fuck Josto. Okay, fuck Josto right after. Yeah, okay, good.
I mean, Lloyd thought
so
about
I'm Cannon.
it.
I'm Team Cannon.
Loy thought about killing Zero, and they actually showed a scene where he's imagining standing outside the bathroom in the hallway with a rope ready to strangle him, and he doesn't do it. He does tell his wife, though, about their son apparently being dead, which crushes her. And so there's that going on. But again, I don't.
Like the familial, and that's what I like about this is that it is a pressure cooker that keeps building and building and building. Meanwhile, the spice is Ariana Mayflower. And it's like, oh, she's murdered. You know what? And the funniest thing that I thought about these two episodes is that they finally killed the doctor who wouldn't take the elder father.
But he's not dead.
Father.
He's not dead.
No one cared. Well,
he's not dead. He's recovering.
Josto doesn't know nothing about this. He doesn't have people in the medical community.
Well, that's the thing. It's like the show keeps dropping plot threads and forgetting about them. Like, again, Ethelreda in the Notebook, Areta in general. It's like, I thought Areta, again, you and I pointed out the theme in the beginning. She's about as Americana, white Americana, Minnesota as you can get. At one point, Josto even refers to her as Minnesota. And you have the immigrants fighting each other when they shouldn't be. And it's like, you figured she was going to be more of a player in the season, and she's really not. She's just kind of on the side doing her own thing. And I'm kind of waiting to see, is that going to come into relevance at all? Maybe, maybe not. And that's kind of what this whole season's been doing. It's just these little side stories. And the idea that the Cannons have a relationship with the Fargo crime family and are able to rope them in just kind of came out of left field. It's like, oh, okay, I guess that's what they're doing now. And like, why don't the Fadas have a relationship with the Fargo crime family? Because they've been there a lot longer than the Cannon family has. They go back decades, but they apparently didn't know about, Mort Kellerman and Fargo to have any business relationship there. And so it's like, I agree that it's a pressure cooker, but to me, I'm not really feeling the pressure because I'm not emotionally invested in caring about most of these characters coming out on top. As I mentioned, Loy is kind of a real asshole. It's not until he thinks his son is dead that suddenly he cares. And it's like, you were so condescending and dismissive of him and treating him as just a business chip. Like nothing, you don't treat him as a person or as your son this whole time. So I can't really care about him. And it's like, I just kind of, it helps when you can be invested in certain characters to feel like for the stakes to be relevant. Because it's like, at this point, I don't really care if both sides get wiped out. As long as the kids get out all right and the kids and the wives get out, then it'll be fine.
Well, it's interesting just to see, because again, it's a euphemism for the American dream, the melting pot, and all that jazz. I think that there is an underlying message that is happening with this season. I don't think it's a bad message, because I think that everybody is dealing with not only racism, but also classism and the nature of relationships between communities. It's an interesting dynamic that's happening. Like,
yeah, and we see that especially
it's a microcosm. I think that's what smart people would call it.
Yeah, and we see that in a more animated fashion in this next episode we're going to talk about.
Well, exactly, and that's the thing. Now, we do have a couple of chats.
Yeah,
and I swear, if you let me go have a cigarette, I can be back really quick. And then we can talk about this one. Oh, shut up. This is your show, too.
I don't leave to go on smoke breaks in the middle of the show.
That's true, but I'll be back in like 2 seconds. Just read the chat. They love you.
Fine, I'll exit this. Do I have the ability to highlight messages?
You should be able to.
All right, go. Just go.
What?
I'm trying to pull the screen up here.
Well, okay, so Irene says, ghosts. Too sweet. Lemon Pie says, that money goes to Scotty. A box of Twinkies.
Oh, wait,
Eugene Bird says, you have a computer, yes?
Yeah, I found it, so you can go now.
Great.
Smoke and get it over with. Fuck.
Will do.
Yeah, see, this is Scott being a bad co-host. But that's where we are now. Is Lemon Pie, is he a twinkle connoisseur? I don't actually know. I wouldn't know that. Maybe Lemon Pie. Lemon Pie says yes. Yes, he is. Oh, Lemon Pie. Yes, he's here. Yes, hello, Lemon Pie and everybody. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. We have when the moon hits your eye like a big lemon pie. That's a yeah, that's good. See, death is final. People can escape cuffs. It's hard to run when you're dead. Very true. Because that's absolutely why he killed her. Or why Otis killed Swanee. And it was, I guess, his fear of the mob, or perhaps his more loyalty to the. Because again, he did that because Cannon was the one who wanted him to kill him, so he's still afraid of Cannon, and knows that Deafy wouldn't have let him kill her, so he just offed them both. Now,
was that so bad?
Edge of Time says, I died once when I was 5, and my mom made me walk it off.
Dude, I inhaled amniotic fluid within the womb.
Lemon Pie says, Otis, that reminds me of Otis Elevators.
They have their ups and downs.
Lemon Pie says, your mom sounds strict. Yes, can you walk it off? See, Irene says, sounds like The Walking Dead, when some good people do very bad things because of circumstances, which essentially change who they are over time. Nobody is really safe in the world. Yeah, that's true. Similar to what's going on here.
And also television influences other television. And I think that this is an actor's, I think that season 4 is an actor's platform. Everyone's acting their asses off. And there is some style and shit going on too.
And I will say, yes, Eugene, I had not seen seasons. Well, Scott and I watched season 5 together because we were watching them one a week as they were dropping episodes. I had not seen season 4 before, except for the first 2 episodes, and then I just kind of dropped it, and I figured, I'll come back to it eventually, and I never did. And Scott has never seen season 4 before. However, I have seen seasons 1, 2, and 3, and we already reviewed season 1, so you can find that on our channel. And so
I gotta put those in a playlist. We don't have them all in a playlist yet.
Yes, we don't have them all in a playlist yet, but we will be making a playlist. So yes, Eugene, this is real reactions for me from season 4, because I have not seen season 4 yet.
It's good times. I'm having fun.
Scotty's professionalism 6 out of 10. His comedy 10 out of 10.
Thanks, Levin.
We know that Scotty.
Shut up! I was quick.
He needs his mystery smoke break, says Eugene Bird. Okay, now if we're caught up in the chat.
Phantasmagorical.
So now we're going to go to the 9th episode, which is...
Everything is in black and white until all of a sudden it turns into the Wizard of Oz.
Well, it was already the Wizard of Oz from the beginning. And so we begin with Omi having Aldo, one of the Fata family soldiers, locked in his trunk. And Omi is pulled over on the side of the road near Liberal, Kansas, where I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a historical marker for the birthplace of the guy who discovered Pluto as a planet. Which, spoiler alert, it's not a planet anymore. It's a dwarf planet now. So the guys, you hear the banging coming from the trunk of the car. And so Omi opens it. Nice. Omi opens the trunk and it's Aldo. And he's just bugging him and annoying him. And so it's like a fight. And he calls him boy, which pisses off Omi. So he locks him in the trunk again. And he drives down the road to a gas station and pulls over. And there's this other guy there, this other black guy. So Omi's talking to him. And the guy's like, hears the noise coming from the trunk. And he's like, son, it's not really my business, but are you bothered by that racket coming from the trunk? He's like, nope. And he's like, have you seen a guy come through here? And he describes Calamita. And he's like, no, I would have probably noticed them. And Omi's like, where are the owners? Are you own this place? He's like, no, they're kind of out right now, but they're having me paint the place. It's taking a while. He's like, well, if you let me park my car around back and stay, I'll help you paint. He's like, okay. So they pull around back, and Omi lets Aldo out of the trunk to help him paint. And during a break in painting, they're sitting down, they're kind of having a drink in the back, and Aldo is telling a story, or he tells him a story about how us guys at the bottom basically should aspire to get more to the top, which gets paid more by turtles. And he's talking about how this guy used turtles piling on top of each. I can't remember how the whole story goes, but
okay, let me try.
Yeah.
So you find someone, the biggest turtle, and they say, I'm the biggest turtle, so I should be on top. And so you help that turtle be on top. And because that turtle is the biggest turtle, he gets other people to help you or help him to get on top. But at the end of the day, the biggest, and it's so you can see for miles and miles. And eventually, you may have been the first person to help this turtle get on top, but you're getting crushed by the weight of everyone else who is helping this one turtle. And it's and then before he, and that's only a supposition, because before he finishes the story, Calamvechi.
Yes, so I forgot to mention, the reason Omi's even here is because Lloyd Cannon, even though he was suspicious of Josto, he's like, no, I want Calamita dead. And Omi's like, don't worry, consider him dead. And so Omi kidnapped the soldier Aldo, and they've been running. And so he told them, oh, go out this way. They went this way, towards Liberal, Kansas. And so that's why. And so now they've bartered their way to stay at the gas station by painting it and stuff. And you're right. That's when Calamita shows up in the car before Aldo can finish telling the story. And then Aldo bolts, and Omi pulls out a gun and shoots Aldo dead. And he drags his body out of the way. And it doesn't seem like Calamita heard the shots, or maybe he did. He turns and he looks, and then
we find out at the end of the episode.
Yes, and then it cuts to one day prior, and we see Rabbi Milligan, Rabbi Milligan and Satchel Cannon driving in the car, riding down the road, and they pass the gas station, and they don't actually stop there. And the kid's like, "Are we almost there?" He's like, "We're hours away now, not days." And he sees in the middle of this empty plain this boarding house just sitting there by itself. He's like, "Well, wait here for a bit." And as they're pulling in, they see this billboard, and it says, "The future is like blank," and it's like a half of the billboard is painted, or a little more than half, and it's suburbs basically that's being painted.
Yeah, it's kind of like what is it? It's like the Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. It's exactly what I was saying.
Lions Estates.
Yes. So he stops the car, and he sees this guy whose job it is to paint the sign. He's taking a break, and he's sitting down like for a sandwich break or whatever. And he's like, "The future is what?" He's like, "Huh? The sign. The future is what?" He's like, "I don't know." What do you mean?
Why don't you finish it? Because as soon as I finish it, I'm unemployed.
Right. And it's like, oh, okay. So then Rabbi.
Well, okay, and it's funny that you bring it up because I want to bring this up specifically. Now, again, episode 9, this is episode 9?
Yes.
This is beautifully shot.
It is.
Like, this is black and white cinematography that I didn't expect from a television production. It looks fantastic. The production is fantastic. And so this billboard it looks so good. I don't know what this was, but it looks so good. You can't believe it. It's fantastic. I feel I sound like Donald Trump. It's the best billboard.
So Rabbi Milligan pulls into the boarding house, and he gets out of the car, and there's a sign talking about the history of this family. And I should have just paused it to read the whole thing, but apparently this family got killed by an axe murderer or something of that nature. And
yeah, I saw that.
Satchel's like, "What does it say?" And Mellon says, and Rabbi says, "It says sleep with one eye open." So they go inside, and they find out that they're these two sisters who run this boarding house. One's very New Testament, the other's a bit Old Testament. And so Rabbi decides to take the side of to stay in rooms on the side of the New Testament lady, because there's like this rivalry, even though they both run the boarding house. And so they decide to stay in the New Testament, and they go inside, get situated in the room, and Satchel tells the kid, Rabbi tells the kid, "Remember, if I'm gone, if I don't come back, I'm dead or I'm in jail." And
anyway, Ashley Lynn, Gaia Storm, hey, just stopping by. Wanted to show my love for you both. I got to get ready because I'm streaming with DBS soon. Scotty, exclamation points, something dark side.
Hey, so the kid stays up there, and he Pluto 1930. Never forget. Yes, I remember. No sooner than it was announced that Pluto was no longer a planet, there was a Facebook group created that says, "When I was your age, Pluto was a planet."
I was part of that. Yeah,
as was I. It was funny, but I don't even think it's around there anymore. I don't know. But anyway,
what, Pluto? It's still there.
No, that group. Anyway, so the kids, Satchel stays here at the boarding house, and he hears this knocking coming from the armoire inside. He's like, "What's this?" So he opens it, and this little white terrier jumps out, and it has a collar with the name Rabbit. So I'm like, okay, so now it's not only Wizard of Oz, we're Alice in Wonderland now. And the dog leaps out and starts running downstairs. So he chases it, and the camera, again, exquisite camera work. It's looking straight down and giving the illusion that it's a spiral staircase, even though it's not. And it's like, follow down the rabbit hole. The kid goes to follow the dog, and he ends up in like the sitting room or whatever. And there's a man in there, and he's smoking, and he's asking and he's kind of jovial, but weird.
Well, and also the house itself, or the boarding house itself, is an allegory because there's east and west, and there's a what do you call it? A questionnaire, and it's like, who do you prefer, Eisenhower or someone else? And Rabbi's like, we don't pay much attention to the politics, and it's like, Eisenhower. Which one do you? And so you are segregated because there are two sisters who own the boarding house. One sister is racist, the other one doesn't really care. But then the ones who are racist hang out with one sister, and the ones who aren't hang out with the other ones. But then there's also this weird guy who's getting surgery in a room with goggles. Very Kubrickian to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's very like a Wonderland craziness. Like, what's going on here? Like, I have Tweedledee and Tweedledum running this boarding house with weirdness, and they have their own, Mad Hatter's tea parties we'll get to in a bit. But he asks the kid these questions. He's like, "You can ask me any questions you want." And the kid, and then this other guy walks in there. He's like, "Who's the kid?" And he's like, I don't know." And the kid, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to Texas because there's oil there, and you can be a millionaire. It's great. It'll be fun." And then he's like, "Whose dog is that?" Because the kid's holding the dog. He's like, It's my dog. Because Milligan shows up again, and he's like, well, it's my dog. He's like, "Come on, I told you to stay upstairs." And he puts him back up in the room, and we find out that the place that Milligan went to was to town, and he parks his car, and he looks at this he goes to this business that's selling like appliances, and there's a very eager salesman there trying to sell this woman a refrigerator. She's not really interested. She's like, "I'll have to ask my husband," and he wants to give her a brochure or a catalog, and she's like, no. And she kind of quickly ushers out of the store.
Okay, we don't need to know about the lady in the store. The reason is that Rabbi goes there. He had stashed some money in a wall that was in the building of the store, but they had knocked out the wall. They got money in the same way that, what's his face, from the first season, found money.
Oh, right. Yes, Stavros Milos.
That's him. And so it was a fun parallel in terms of that. And so
because it used to be a different business, and he's like, "What happened to the lady that used to run this place?" And she's like, "Oh, her 3 sons were killed in the war, and she was also given with grief, and then her brother took over, and he gambled away all the money, and so we bought the place, and we knocked out the wall and remodeled it. What's the big deal?" And Rabbi is kind of upset, and he doesn't push the matter at first. First, he leaves. He goes back to the boarding house. He says, "Kid, I told you to stay upstairs." They're invited to dinner, and no sooner that they walk into the main dining room where the sisters are sitting on either side. Both of them can't hear very well enough to use those little whatever they're called, to be able to hear. And one's really racist. She's like, "There's no boy, you can't sit here at the table," because she's racist. And the kid stops there, and the other sister's like, "Nah, sit down. It doesn't matter. You can sit on this side over here." And that strange guy who's getting the surgery decides to introduce everyone, and he points out that this one guy across the table, that's him and his wife, and she's like, "I'm his mother." And he's like, "Oh," and then here's
no, it was more of a religious thing, not his mother. No, she wanted to be addressed as mother as opposed to being his mother. It was like an American Gothic thing,
right? And then there's another guy there, an older man. He's got like his military insignia. He's got an eye patch on. And anticipating that this weird guy is going to falsely assume his relationship with a little girl sitting next to him, he's like, "It's my niece, Minnie." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Oh, you know who we are, blah, blah, blah." And
oh, wait. Do you think that the old man with the eye patch and the little girl, what did you think was going on?
I wasn't really sure because I was picking up on the Alice in Wonderland aspect of it, and that it's a bit bizarre, and because you have, like you said, the American Gothic thing going over there. You have the weird. At this point, we haven't been shown the fact that this the guy talking is getting the plastic surgery done or whatever at the place. And so, and
Well,
you
and
know,
also, Fargo so far hasn't been all weird sex stuff, so I'm going to keep those separated.
yeah, I
There
didn't
was
pick up on
something.
any lines like that from the
No,
eye patch guy.
thank you. I just needed to be talked down from that particular monkey bar.
And so Milligan makes sure not to say too much as they're sitting having this awkward dinner, and they're like, "Oh, we have to say grace." And the American Gothic guy is he starts saying it, but then the kid who wants to go find oil in Texas interrupts him and sums it up a lot faster in a much less formal way. And the American Gothic guy's like, I've never heard somebody say their prayers in grace like that before. And so it's like
What
this
kind
awkward,
of cockamamie prayer was that?
yeah. So it's like this awkward thing that happens. And so
Yes, it is.
Milligan decides we're not staying here. We got to go. And so he's like, I thought we were going to stay a couple days. We're not staying. So
It's delightfully awkward. I hate awkward comedy. I love awkward drama.
right. So he's worried about leaving him there, and so he decides to take the kid into town with him because he doesn't trust him home with all these weird characters at the boarding house. So he parks the car outside that business where the appliances are sold, and while he goes inside, the owner and his brother are having a discussion, and the owner's like, "You don't know, this guy came in yesterday. He's kind of weird. I think you should." And the guy's like, "Relax," and he shows his brother he's got a gun, and then Milligan shows up and holds him at gunpoint. He's like, "What do you think I was coming back for?" And he tells him, he's like, there was money in this wall, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you got to understand, sir, we didn't know. We just, we bought the place, knocked it down, we found the money. It was like, oh, praise the Lord and be grateful. And we spent some of it. It's like, where's the rest of it? I won't ask again. And he cocks the gun, and they're like, oh, it's in the safe. We'll get it for you. And they get out the bag, and they give it to him. And Milligan goes through it.
It's like $1,000.
Yeah, it's like $1,000. He's like, there was $5,000 in here. And they make a point of not showing you what happens next. But meanwhile, outside, Satchel, despite
no
sitting
sound though, there are no bullet shots.
Right, there's no sounds. So we go outside and we see Satchel is sitting in the car minding his own business with the dog, and this cop wanders up and starts harassing him because racist cop. And he's like, "Is this your car?"
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, "No, I'm with somebody. Where are they?" Blah blah. But then Milligan shows up and he's like, "Is there a problem, officer?" And he's like, "What's this?" It's like, it's my car. What about this kid? Your kid?" It's like, yeah, and he slips his hand in his pocket, getting ready to have his gun if he needs it. And he tells this bullshit story about how he knew the kid's dad in the war, and he was the first guy who got killed in peacetime, right when when it was officially over. And he got, I can't remember what the circumstance was, but he got shot, and he decides he owed him one, and so he's helping to raise his son. And the cops
it's a bullshit story.
Yeah, it's a bullshit story, but the racist cop is like, man, that's a real shit gig to get stuck with, and leaves him be. He's like, just to let you know, this ain't the kind of town where you want kids like that to be seen. It's such a real piece of shit, basically. And so the cop, even though he went out of his way to go confront the kid when nobody would have known anyone, so it's like, even by your own racist logic, this doesn't make sense. And so he leaves saying, okay, see you later. They get in the car and Rabbi's upset. And so they drive back to the boarding house.
Racist, I found his rationale illogical.
So they drive back to the board. Well, illogical in that he's like, "Oh, you shouldn't be walking down the street." It's like he's in the car. Nobody's.
It's 1950. It was a different time.
I understand that, but this is insane. We didn't even have that many.
Maybe the
that wasn't going on in
Kansas
Kansas City.
Kidnapped the dog.
Well, remember when Opal told Deffy
that car from the passenger side?
Remember when Opal told Deffy that, oh, you shouldn't even be in this neighborhood? And he had no qualms telling him that, a black man telling that to a white guy. So it's not just the time. It's like, it's just this backwards town. So anyway, Milligan takes
way out of Kansas City at this point.
Well, liberal Kansas. I'm not sure how far it is, but it's Kansas, so it's like right there. So he takes the kid back to the boarding house, and he's like, weird. And they're getting ready to pack up to leave.
I think you're being geographically discriminatory.
No, I'm not. It's a one-horse town of assholes. That's the point.
Anyway, let's keep going. Going. Don't listen to me.
Milligan wants to leave. And the kid wants to take the dog. He's like, you can't take the dog. Why not? Because it makes too much noise. I'll teach it to be quiet. No. And he's like, I just wanted something for my birthday. And he's like, what? He's like, yeah, it's my birthday. I just wanted one thing. He's like, what do you want about? He's like, I've never been allowed to have anything. I've been doing everything. My dad wanted me to do this. You guys want me to. I don't get to have shit. And so Rabbi feels bad, but he doesn't want to let him keep the dog either. So he decides to go get him a candy bar. at the gas station that they pass.
What does he say to the lady behind the counter before he goes to?
I can't remember.
He says, if the boy asks, tell him I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah. So
what has he always said before?
I'll be dead. If I'm not gone, I'm dead or I'm in jail.
If I don't come back, I'm either dead or in jail. And that is the only time. And so far, spoilers for the end of the episode.
Well, he's still sticking to that same mantra. If he doesn't come back, he's dead or he's in jail. He just told he doesn't want the kid.
He just didn't say it. It has been a point in that character to the responsibility that he has to Satchel is to tell him, if I don't come back, I'll be dead or in jail. That is his moral crux. We've seen his development as a child into this caretaker, and he failed that particular, pleasantry? And that is why, spoilers for the end of the episode. Anyway, so he leaves, gets in his car, heads to the gas station.
And he sees the gas station attendant dead. So he pulls out his gun, and he's really nervous, and he looks inside and he sees Calamita has shot Omi, which confirms for us that Calamita did indeed hear the gunshot. And so he's gotten the one up on him. And Calamita sees Rabbi Milligan and fires. He misses. He goes outside to follow him. There's a storm coming. We see a tornado brewing their way. And a bit of a contrived notion. So he shoots Rabbi in the shoulder. Rabbi collapses and tries to get the gun. Calamita's not looking, and Omi comes up behind him and shoots him, but he doesn't kill him. So Calamita turns around. Yeah, he's out of bullets. So Calamita turns around and kills Omi. Yeah. And the storm is getting closer. Rabbi is taking the opportunity that from when he had his back, Calamita had his back turned to shoot Omi, to raise his own gun to kill Calamita, but it gets knocked out of his hand by a board because the winds are really picking up. And Calamita's getting closer, and he's about to finish him off. And in a cartoonish way, it's almost like Rabbi Milligan notices it, but Calamita doesn't hear this massive tornado that's sinking up behind them, or the fact that all the debris is starting to fly. And
let's call it adrenaline. I'm okay with the dramatic tension.
Calamita gets sucked up into the tornado. The car gets sucked up into the tornado, and then Rabbi Milligan gets sucked up into the tornado. Yeah. And we see them spinning around, but we don't see them get spit out. But they're dead. That's done for.
If Rabbi lives, I'm gonna be upset.
Well, I noticed that they also had the shot when Rabbi finds the gas station attendant dead. He sees his feet sticking out under by the base of the door for the auto garage portion, and that is echoing, the Wicked Witch of the East being crushed by Dorothy's house.
Oh, that's a good call. Yeah.
Because this whole thing is very much Kansas, or we're not in Kansas anymore, or whatever. Wizard of Oz. Except this is reversed because they have that shot alluding to it before the tornado comes, but it still tells us, because of Wizard of Oz references, oh, this is what's going to happen. So the tornado comes and carries off Rabbi Milligan and Calamita, presumably dead. We then cut back to the house, and the kid sees, the American Gothic people are folding up in American.
Yeah, it's all like the fucking house is being stupid.
And and this is where it changes to color. Satchel steps out of the room, and it finally changes to color.
Well, it's after he wakes up and he sees
he wakes up
Rabbi hasn't been home. And so he actually realizes, oh, he's not back yet. He's either
dead or in jail.
In jail.
And he looked out the window and presumably saw the other house that was destroyed. So he knows there's been a tornado.
I thought he was looking down to find out whether or not the car was there.
Well, that too, but he probably sees the destruction outside and might get the idea. So he steps out of the bedroom with the dog, and that's when it cuts to color. We see the American Gothic people folding up an American flag. He then sees the weird guy who was being nice to him in the parlor, who was introducing everybody at the table, was like you said, getting that
Baron Harkonnen.
I don't know what's going on. Is the injury it's kind of an odd thing. It's like it does echo that a little bit in a way.
For like a little bit, I was like, is this supposed to be about American healthcare?
Maybe, because unless he was outside when the tornado happened and got hit by some debris and the guy's just helping him. Like, I don't know.
I haven't the slightest.
I was thinking, because I was running the whole. Oh, that's right. I forgot to mention when Rabbi was on his way back from town with a kid, he saw the billboard was finished, and the billboard says, "The future is now."
The future is now.
And he asked the guy who painted it. He's like, "What the fuck? What does that mean?" And he says, "I don't know. They just paid me to write this shit. I don't know what it means."
But when Satchel goes and sees it, he sees it not as a question or as a bumper sticker. He looks at it and he takes it to heart. The future is now.
Yes. And it's in color, and
True.
And he has the dog with him, and you can tell that he's kind of, because of all the Wizard of Oz stuff, he has his little dog Toto, but it's also like the White Rabbit from Wonderland and the weirdness of that boarding house. And so you're leaving the weirdness of Oz, so to speak, which in itself is, like you said, a microcosm of Americana or whatever. And he's leaving, and he sees that billboard, and that is where I finally, the light bulb went off in my head, because I know what the name Milligan means to season 2, but I couldn't figure out how they were going to make that connection. And then when I saw the kid looking at the billboard, I'm like, oh my God, is that who I think it is? And maybe it is.
Spoilers for season 2.
Well, I'm not going to tell you if you don't want me to, but he.
I don't want you to tell.
No, we don't. So I thought, oh my God, is that him? And I started running the numbers in my head as if the years add up or not, because there's 29 years between this season and the events of season 2. But I thought, ooh, that is something. And I thought, oh my God, I think I know what the kid's going to do now. I know how this size. I was like, oh, okay, we got it.
What did I say at the beginning of this broadcast? I feel like I'm watching a prequel to something that's going to happen later. This is all backstory for shit you know, bitch.
I do, but I still don't know exactly how he's going to get in the position he needs to for the connection to be made. But I know that the connection is coming.
2 things. I don't know where that accent came from, and I apologize for calling you bitch. Anyway, yeah, no, even my vulgarities are boring.
And that's the episode. It's a very Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland. And I think it's the whole thing, like the billboard is essentially, there's no place like home, and this is the future. And it's not just you see boring, empty Kansas plains, but he sees the future in the city and, industrialization and economic. He sees like the future, and it's like his dad had always been telling him that, oh, I'll get you in the future. I'll take care of it. It'll be done when it's done. The arrangement will be over with whenever I say it's over. And it's like, this has been going on for so long, and now he sees that sign, believing now that Milligan is dead or in jail, and he realizes that Dad's not coming for me. Milligan's not coming for me. I need to take the reins, and it's now my turn to take some initiative and make his own decisions.
This will be very interesting.
It is. Again, I know I'm fairly certain. I'm 95% certain I know what this connection is to season 2. I just don't know how the function is going to connect.
I trust your judgment.
Yes. And so
but we still have 2 more episodes left.
And I feel it's worth mentioning that 9 episodes in, this is apparently the only real. I mean, yeah, other than the idea that it's a prequel to how the Kansas City mob came around, it's still the only connection to that. It's still a season 2 oriented origin story. It's not really tied to anything else. So at least not so far. Yeah. So we'll see how they bring it together in the last 2.
As you and I have discussed before, I think that this is more of a performative Fargo than a spiritual relation. I think that this is,
like
this season, I like it. I think it's very well performed, and I feel echoes of Coen Brothers things. But I don't think that this is,
like you said last week, you have to look for the Fargo in Fargo.
I do, yeah.
And
I have to really look for the Fargo.
So that's the issue. And then for me, it's how they just keep dropping random plot lines and picking them up at various times, and it keeps breaking my immersion because it's like, no, this character would have done this by now. This person would have remembered that by now, and so on and so forth. And I mean, it's nice to see that we're finally getting down the home stretch where it's finally getting a bit more. Each scene is going to have a little bit more suspense, but I still feel kind of a bit half-baked because I'm not really invested in anybody at this point except for the two kids, Zero and...
No! I'm invested in so many people I can't even remember their names. I love Chris Rock and Jason Schwartzman and Gaetano.
Well, I like them, but do I care
Jessie
about whether or not...
Buckley and
I don't care about if any of those characters live or die because they're bad people.
do. I'm hoping that Mayflower. I always want to say Mayweather. Mayflower dies.
Right, but I mean, like, I'm not. But the fact that all the warring factions are people who I can't really root for any of them other than rooting against them, sure. But Ethelrita,
the guys have been sort of cut away.
It's Ethelrita, Zero, and Satchel who I kind of want to get out of it all right. Other than that, the other characters I don't really care about, whether they get out or not. And like I mentioned before, I should hate Orietta for who she is and everything she's done. But because she's been getting barely much attention or having any relevance, it's just like this weird thing that's just kind of going on the side. And it's like, I should be more invested in hating her because she is evil, but for some reason I'm not, because it's so detached from the rest of the story.
Well, she is the primary Fargo anchor. And that's why, like, for me to hate her, she has to be more involved in the machinations of this war.
Yeah.
And she is so on the outskirts that whenever she shows up, I'm like, oh, there's the cute girl who murders people.
Right, exactly. That's kind of how I feel about it. I
think that is folly for the season.
The only other thing I noted is that so far this season, they've a couple times they've mentioned Mort Kellerman, the leader of the Fargo Syndicate.
Mm-hmm.
That's not somebody from any of the other seasons of the show. That's a new name, but I find it odd. They talk about him, but we've never actually seen him. Maybe they didn't want to create false expectations, like there would be another set of crime family we'd have to worry about. And maybe that's why. But the fact that
it's Judd Hirsch.
But they keep dropping his name almost like we're going to meet him at some point. So I wonder if we will meet him. Or maybe they're just dropping his name because Noah Hawley has an idea for... Because like you said, he has ideas for stories set in the 60s and the 80s. So maybe Mort Kellerman will show up somewhere. I don't know.
Dropping references to lore has been successful, since the dark times. And your father was quite a pilot when I met him. Same fucking difference. Drop it around, play with it, do whatever you want with it. I am a big fan of the anthology series, and that's what makes me so enthusiastic about this show. Like this season, is that I know I'm moving to a different time frame and cast. So this story unto itself, I'm in. I am wrapped. Like I think that this is so much more intricate and engaging. I don't know. It's not as good as season 1, but it's neck and neck with season 5.
The part that's engaging to me is just the curiosity factor in terms of who's going to come out on top and how are they going to wrap it up. Because again, I know there's a Kansas City mob that's going to be formed as a corporate entity. I don't know how exactly that's going to manifest. So
I didn't even know that. Spoilers.
Well, we've talked about that in a few previous episodes. But
I'm being a bitch.
Anybody else in the chat?
Yes, plenty of people. Irene says, sometimes my family and I drive to Creek Falls from Chattanooga. We go from Eastern Standard Time to Central Time. When we drive home, much of to my husband's chagrin, I always say, we're going back to the future.
That's nice.
I do enjoy crossing lines.
Yes.
Cinema Gulp says, we're not a bank, Jerry.
Oh, that reminds me. There was another moment that I forgot to mention where Loy, when they're riding in the car after they've had the meeting with Josto, and he says, wait, pull over. And he's like, what? He's like, stop. And he gets out and he sees the sign for credit cards being accepted at the diner. And it's like,
oh, I forgot about that too. Good call.
Yeah, they turned him down and now but they'll take the same idea themselves. And he realizes that, the bank manager guy was just BSing me. It's not that he thinks it's a bad idea. It's that he doesn't want me to be in charge of it because I'm a black guy, and he's either already came up with the idea.
It's an assumption.
So the idea
It's
is
a
either
valid assumption.
the idea is either that he stole the idea from Loy, or the implication, which I've read through reviews, is that
spoilers.
He already had the idea and was just pretending that I'm not interested, and that's what gave Loy the idea that Josto was lying to him and decided to double cross, by releasing Gaetan. And that's kind of what gave Loy the idea. That's what a lot of critics took from it. I'm not sure. I took it to mean that Loy is frustrated.
We're gonna need to hang on. Roll that back and tell me about that just for a second. So what happened with the credit card?
So remember, he went to the bank and proposed.
Yes, I recall.
And they said no. So he sees the sign that this diner is now accepting credit cards. The businesses that he was trying to get to accept his credit cards, and he was going to do that with the help of the bank, they're now accepting credit cards, which means that the bank went to somebody else for this. And so he's upset because he thinks, again, it's just racism. That's why they didn't want to. It's not that they didn't think I had a good idea. It's that they didn't want to do business with me because I'm a black man. And no matter how much I'm trying to pave the way to legitimacy, which is kind of what a lot of crime families do.
That is never expressly said.
It isn't, but I read it because here's the thing. He's seeing it, and we know what he was trying to do, because even the bank manager asked him, if you've already got your own credit card company thing, why do you need me? And he's like, well, I need you so I can get access to the white businesses and get them to accept the cards. And it was one of those white businesses that had the sign saying, oh, this great diner, we accept credit cards, blah, blah, blah. And he realizes that the bank manager didn't say, oh, we're just not interested because we already have a deal. He says, he basically, shit on the whole concept of credit cards ever being viable. It's like, oh, it's not going to work. And now he sees that they're actually doing it anyway. And presumably it hasn't, I can't remember how much time has necessarily passed. So the boy looks at that and he realizes, he takes it clear from the expression on his face and the hurt when he sees that they thought it was a great idea, but didn't want to do business with him because he's a black man. And that's upset him.
And also a racketeer and a criminal.
Right. But did they know he was a racketeer and a criminal? It didn't seem like the bank manager knew that. He just knew that he was from his own bank. And he's like, well, you already have your own bank. What do you need me for, type of thing? So that was something else because again, a lot of crime families, they do want a path of legitimacy. A lot of 5 families have since made it to legitimacy, which is why you don't hear about the mafia anymore, because a lot of them have since gone legitimate. And so
I'm not dissuading the racism.
Right.
But I also don't want to dismiss corporate greed. If anybody who was on a lower social echelon were to present a business opportunity to a higher economic power, it would more than likely be stolen by the subservient, no matter what their skin color. And so when I feel that this show is heavy-handed, and it is set in 1950 as a parable to talk about current things, and I think it's doing a good job, a fine job, but it's like, they've been fucking everybody. It doesn't matter what you're...
Right, but he's been trying... But here's the thing. He figured that precisely because of that point that they're fucking everybody. Like, the bank manager even said, you expect us to do this and screw over people on predatory lending practices? It's almost like Loy was appealing to the fact that the banks like engaging in criminality as well. Kind of like Zelmer said. It's like, oh, we're not criminals. Criminals and respectable people, so to speak, play the game. It's like, we're outlaws. We're different. But it's still the idea that both sides, kind of screwing each other over. And the whole... they even mentioned this in All Things. I went to the movies with my dad today. We went to see The Godfather Part 2. And he was talking about the great hypocrisy. That, oh, you say you don't want to, Senator from Nevada, you're saying you don't want to do business with me because I'm Italian and mob. You're acknowledging that great hypocrisy. And it's the same type of idea. It's that both sides are like, Loy screws people over because, yes, he's a criminal and he's a racketeer, but the banks screw people over too. It's just that of all the people, they just didn't want to go into business with him. And Loy looked at that sign, and looking at the expression on Chris Rock's face when he plays that scene, you could tell that he takes that to mean that because he's on this lower rung of the ladder, because of being a black man, they're never going to, doesn't matter how great the idea is, they would prefer to steal it, or they're maybe playing and pretending that they didn't think it was a good idea. That's what the takeaway is. And it makes me wonder, Like Loy, that's why Loy has finally said all out war when they said, "Well, boss, your plan didn't work. What are we gonna do?" Fargo, like he's ready for a war. He's just pissed at this point.
Well, and I also get that intention from between Porthos and Arietta. Josto and Mayflower.
Yeah.
Is that when Josto says, "I love you," and Mayflower being a representation of the United States, and the United States, like Mayflower being America, saying like, "Get out." It's like once you rely upon her, like there are things going on all over the place that I'm interpreting just because. Maybe it's because I've been warned in terms of the reviews, but this is all allegorical, and it all so many ins, outs, what have yous. Eugene Bird says Pluto is a planet, period. Eros can be one too, if it is jealous, right? I've never met Eros. I've performed it. Eugene says, my brother Don. Well, your brother Don Juan anything to do with you? That was a Walter Matthau quote. Cinema Gulp says, yeah, right now. You're darn tootin'. If it's so damned important to you. Eugene says is a teacher in Chattanooga. And Eugene considers on Eris, not Eros. Damned spell checker. Cinema Gulp says, is this your ball? I struck my foot. I struck your foot. What?
Oh, it struck my foot, he says.
Oh. Flyboy says.
Herc 130 says he's been to Liberal, Kansas on the southwest lower border near the Texas Panhandle. There's a museum of Wizard of Oz there. Interesting. Ooh, I didn't know that. Okay. That's also when they passed the sign on the way into town saying it's the pancake hub of the world.
Oh, they did, yeah.
Which prompted the organist saying, I want pancakes.
Well, I want pancakes. Especially there.
That's interesting. Look.
No. What were you saying?
That's interesting that there's a Wizard of Oz museum there. I mean, I know the story's set in Kansas, but I don't know if there's a specific link to that city as to why, but that's interesting.
Eugene Bird says, what is Cat's t-shirt say?
Oh, it says, I drink your milkshake. Great movie.
I've heard of it. That's the Dirk Diggler film?
No, it's what Daniel Plainview says to the preacher Eli to make the analogy that you want to go into business, oil on this land, and there is none because of drainage. And I take my straw, dip it into your milkshake cup, and I've slurped up your milkshake, which is what happens with the drainage from different oil on. Like when you put a bunch of oil derricks around somebody else's land that also has oil, it just sucks everything out from underneath it.
It is my
There Will Be Blood, 2007, Paul Thomas Anderson. Great movie.
It is my second favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman movie.
He's not in that one. He's in the Dirk Diggler movie. He's not in.
Plays a guy named Scotty. Herc in the chat says Godfather 2 is in my top 5 favorite movies and goes on to say Godfather made the list too. Well, Herc, that makes one of us. Anyway, do you have anything that you want to do on the internet that you're like looking forward to promoting there? Now that we've said hello and thank you to the chat, big fucking ups to Eugene Bird for the super stickers.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Sorry for the swear. But is there anything that you do on the internet that you would like to say, talk about?
Let's see. I'm on Letterboxd, YouTube, Instagram, at Slicenide. I've reviewed all the Best Picture films on Positive Fandom channel, which has also been simulcast on the Burr Network.
Nice.
And might be reviewing the SAG-AFTRA Awards this weekend sometime, whatever the results are, as well as the Oscars a couple weeks from now on that same Positive Fandom Network channel.
Did you get a gown?
What?
Did you get a gown?
No.
Oh.
No. And then you can find me also on the Virtual Cantina Network every second and fourth Sunday of the month, 8 a.m. Pacific is when we drop new episodes of Unifying Force, Star Wars Philosophy TV show, or talk show, whatever, talk show or whatnot. And then you can find me here every Thursday at 7 with Scotty.
And we talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about.
So
currently we're in the middle of Fargo. It's going to be great. Next week we're going to be finishing off season 4. That's going to be an explosive.
Perhaps, yeah.
Who do you think is going to die? Anybody going to die?
I think Loy might get it.
You think that Chris Rock is going to eat it?
I think all three of them. I think the Italians, the two Gaetano and Giusto will as well.
Huh. It's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. It's fun watching shows week by week and not knowing what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Fuck you, binge bitches. Anyway. I am on drugs. And sorry. Hang on a second. Let's edit that out. Hi, everybody. I'm your friendly neighborhood Scotty R37. You can find me on X at Scotty R37. I hang out with Kat every Thursday on the Fantasmagorium show, where we talk about whatever the fuck we want. Then on Tuesdays, I get to talk about the original series of Star Trek for only 8 more weeks. That's over on Antiderivative Jill. But wait, there's more. On Fridays with Antiderivative Jill, we talk about such films as The Prophecy, because of Satan. Anyway. That was a little robotic. Sorry about that.
Shout out to the chat.
Oh, we got another chat?
Oh, shout out if there's anybody else to thank in the chat.
We'd like to thank Lemon, Herc130, Eugene Bird, Cinema Gulp, Edge of Time, Hale, Irene Jobson, Irene Jacobson, both of you, twin sisters, Ashley Lynn Gaia Storm, DJ Plain Ice, such a delight. I still think you look like the frog from One Frog Evening. I'm sorry. It's all I can see. I'm a horrible person. But I think that's everybody.
All right.
LDG Free the Net, thank you so much. Congratulations. Keep on, trucking. Taylor Swift, greater than Disney, Star Wars, and MCU Matt G. And Phantom Organist, I hope you have a phantom orgasm. Anyway, is it about time we got, the hell out of here?
Oh, you betcha, yeah.